Welcome to HumBot, your podcast where we talk about application of AI agents in business environments. You'll hear from professionals who are builders, buyers, users, and exec leaders working on agentic AI implementation at scale. Today's speaker has an extremely compelling balance of industry practitioner depth and executive decision-making and alignment. It is my absolute privilege to invite Thomas. Thomas, welcome to HumBot. And Thomas has joined us from Copenhagen in our London studios today. Thomas comes with a very wide array of industry expertise. He spent the last 20 years in one of the largest life sciences companies you could ever imagine, deploying tens of millions of capital in data and AI categories for strategic depth and strategic business outcomes delivered at scale. So at this stage, let me invite Thomas, and maybe Thomas, you could introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's an outstanding pleasure for me to come here and visit you and visit the HumBot team. It's been quite a rewarding time. I also learned a lot by being here. And in all honesty, I think HumBot is a super exciting product. It's a super exciting opportunity for many companies, large complex organizations to adopt AI agents into their process landscape, which can drive, I think, significant transformations. And, one of the things that I particularly enjoy about HumBot is the fact that HumBot works on companies' own environments. It's their data, and they will get the right to use these AI engineers. It stays with the company's IP, the company's data, security around it. All of that is taken care of. So that is really, really exciting. So thank you so much for having me here today.
Yeah, I mean, we are so privileged and glad that you joined us. In terms of just your background experience and your understanding of agentic AI as a concept, could you just take us through how your career has shaped and why do you think agentic AI has a promise?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Thank you. So go many years back in time, I kicked off my career in audit, moved fairly fast into IT security audit. So I've sort of been through the servers, the networks, the operating systems, logical security, physical security, application security. That was also my segue into a company like Novo Nordisk. As you said, I've spent nearly two decades there. It's been a wonderful journey. Started there also in security audit, but fairly fast moved into the business where you can sort of divide my career into two main chapters. One part being part of large system scale-outs, so enterprise-wide application deployments. And then the other part working with data, advanced analytics, business intelligence, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. And if you wind back 10 years, I think most enterprises, they were struggling with BI, moving from classic data warehousing into self-service business intelligence. I call it business analytics, when you sort of federate data across the organization to business analysts. Already back then, we embraced the thinking of a medallion architecture.
Nice.
Not something we invented, but something we learned from some really skilled people we had the opportunity to work with back then. And if you go back 10 years, I think it was already in the beginning what you could do with making the technology more approachable for enterprises, companies such as the company that I was working for, Novo Nordisk. So I had the opportunity to move into the IT organization, data, digital, and IT. And I did that because Novo Nordisk started to invest in cloud infrastructure, which I believe is the fundament to scale data and AI unless you have the capability on-premise. And with that, we started working together with hyperscalers on building the cloud infrastructure, the security, building platform capabilities, so data platform capabilities. And then on top of that, starting to execute various different business use cases, advanced analytics, machine learning, and a little later on, artificial intelligence. So that has sort of been the second part of my career, being so fortunate to come into a team of 5 excellent colleagues and then scaling that team, scaling that capability in a company like Novo Nordisk. It's been a wonderful journey.
Excellent. And I think for the community who are listening to us, just the pragmatism and the detail you would bring to this conversation will be so valuable, because you come from the position of an end buyer, an end consumer, making the right decisions for scale impact.
I can guarantee you, I also made quite a few pretty bad decisions. I made a lot of mistakes on the path. So we learned a lot, but I think you learn by making mistakes and reflecting on, okay, I made this mistake, we made this mistake. If I would have done that differently, what would I have done then? And I think that's part of the journey, because if you go back 7-8 years, there were no playbooks for how to get started. There were no engineering playbooks. There were limited instructions. It's not that the companies that we teamed up with were not willing to work with us and teach us how to do these things. But we were starting from scratch. So it was like navigating like completely blindfolded. So therefore, also quite a number of mistakes and learnings on the way.
No, indeed. And talking of playbooks, there exists no playbook for what it means to deploy AI agents at scale in enterprises. And maybe, Thomas, if we could talk about kind of the mistakes or the gaps enterprises have today. What is your view that a lot of pilots are positioned as successful, but there is still no real meaningful adoption at scale of agents? Why do you think this is happening?
Yeah, and I don't think necessarily it's only about AI agents, to be quite honest. I think it's also other types of AI systems or AI solutions, advanced analytics solutions. I think a lot of organizations, for good reasons, they sort of sense an urgency. We got to do something. Let's start investing in AI because the hype is real now. People are, of course, skeptical because I guess everyone has their Claudes or their, what do I know, chat GPTs that they are working with on their mobile phones and their devices and whatnot. And we have all basically seen how they completely derail with the conversations you might have with the technology. But I don't think it's isolated to AI. I think it's a general problem. Yes. And I think it's a general problem because what surveys shows, which I think to some degree is right, that you lack the strategic direction setting from the executive level. So basically the CXO level and the board, I think should look at the company strategy. They should look at their P&L. So how do you generate income and how do you maximize profitability? Should have a look at your balance sheets, your material assets, your buildings, your production equipment, your warehouses, your immaterial assets. That could be intellectual property, software, whatever you have. And you should basically sit down and be quite cynical and map out in your business strategy where can AI fuel the outcome of these significant processes, capabilities that we are trying to build. Whether it is product lifecycle management, whether it's a superior customer experience, whether you want to do IoT on your physical assets that can drive productivity significantly, you need to sit down and create that overview, and then you need to start invest. And it's not a little bit here and a little bit there. Yeah. You need to do significant investments of material nature, so 1-2% of your revenue, maybe even more, in order to get these capabilities massaged into your organization. Furthermore, you need to, instead of expecting a quarterly return, you need to have a strategic outlook. So you need to do this with a lens of 3 years or more, because before you can start to take significant return home, you need to build fundamental capabilities, data, technology, processes, engineering culture, and all of these capabilities as part of your investment, they take time. So you won't be able to see any significant impact in your P&L before a couple of years into the future.
Interesting.
And I think a lot of corporations, they have basically a tendency to allow for use cases right, left, and center. With all due respect, people are coming in with great ideas. They partner up with experts. They draw up the solution. That's good. But the challenge is they might introduce another hyperscaler, another cloud vendor. They might introduce another platform technology. They might introduce another LLM than what is already there, whatever capability that is needed to fulfill that very specific use case. And then when you sort of have a million of those, they don't work well together in the underlying architecture. You don't harvest the synergies that your infrastructure can give you if it is harmonized. You don't harvest the synergy of the data engineering pipelines that you're building to build products, data products. And at the end of the day, you also don't harvest the synergies of the blueprints you're building in the advanced analytics space that allows for you to scale AI advanced analytics capabilities across the board. So you will see a lot of costs going into the P&L, and the CFO will have a hard time identifying the big ticket items that is impacting the business significantly.
No, indeed. I think you nailed it. And we see a lot of customer execs who we talk to on a daily basis grappling with this exact question. And if I could rephrase that question for you, it's how do I get the most returns on the investments I make today? And a part of that, maybe a subtopic in the question is they're not even sure if it's a horizontal category investment in AI or are they vertical investments.
Exactly.
So how would you think about this questioning and the need for returns?
Exactly. So the way I look at this problem is that I think companies, they need to invest broadly in AI adoption that impacts, again, it depends a little industry to industry, but if you consider knowledge workers, adopting a standard LLM provider and embedding that into your company via a simple app and combined with instruction, do's and don'ts, some guardrails, and maybe a team that can help folks get started, a team that can help folks with whatever problems they might encounter, I think will generate broad productivity improvements across the organization. So when OpenAI came out with ChatGPT, 3-4 years ago, we saw the big consulting firms saying this has huge potential. We'll see 12% productivity improvements or so. A few months later, we launched an LLM app from one of these providers in Novo Nordisk. I had a really, really skilled team that picked it up. We served it via one of our hyperscalers in a safe and secure manner. So making sure the guardrails were in place, making sure the data was under control, and said, you can use this for internal purpose. And then a couple of months later, we had more than 15,000 users. We did a survey.
Impressive.
And identified, those that are not using it a little or just testing it out, using it some, etc. 5 different categories. And with that, combining what are your basic productivity improvements. And we realized that those that were using it a lot, they generally saved 8%. So a little more conservative than what was predicted by the consulting firms. It was still, and bear with me, I'm speaking in DKKs, it was still 100 million DKK use case. So it was a good use case, and the technology has scaled even further in the company since then. The challenge is this is not significant from a CFO lens at that point in time. So the level of materiality at Novo Nordisk at that point in time was north of 4 billion DKK. And this is where you got to distinguish that if you want to drive true transformational adoptions of technologies such as AI, you need to go deep in solving strategic problems with the technology, because the horizontal adoption will be table stakes. I say a little roughly, do it or die. But what will keep you competitive, relevant 2 years down the road, whatever is strategic significant for you as a business, that's where you go vertical. And that can cover more than one area in your value chain where you're combining data and you're generating insights that accelerates the value creation for your customers. And I would argue that you got to spend 60-70% of your budget in those types of problems, and then maybe 20-30% on broader horizontal adoption, whether it will accelerate your folks that are working in the office package or general chatbot inquiries, 20-30%, and then maybe 10% or so for innovation and experiment, as long as you also control that. You gotta monitor what you get out of innovation and experiment, but I think it's an important part of the journey.
And what a great way to frame it, Thomas. I'm already capturing mental models that a large proportion of it should be focused on those needle-moving use cases.
Absolutely.
Sponsored by the board or the exec leadership.
Exactly.
Right? And the rest can be innovation, experimentation, and all of those are important.
And general productivity improvements.
Yes.
Exactly.
And interestingly, when these conversations happen, the role of data comes to the fore.
Absolutely.
And data strategy and data foundations take a pivotal position. How would you see the importance of the right data strategy before even thinking of deploying AI or AI agents at scale?
So I think for me, this is the essence of building a data strategy, because large enterprises like the firm I was working for easily have one system per 10 employees. So if you're working in an organization with 50,000 people, you can do the math.
Yeah.
That gives you basically a curve with a very long tail of systems, and not all of them are relevant for solving your strategic ambition. And I think data engineers, they're often struggling with only taking parts of the data from strategic systems instead of getting data from your strategic system into your data platform, where you can combine it with other sources of data to build your data products that is relevant for the domain in which you are working with. So a domain could be customers, right? So for me, the strategy is actually choosing which systems, sources of data that are supporting our business process we are currently transforming with AI. Do we need to get into our data platform? So identify those couple of systems that will drive significant output in your AI ambition. And make sure you understand the type of data. What is your acquisition of data? So there are a few things to consider. First and foremost, do we have the data already? Do we need to generate the data because the process is manual or semi-manual? Do we need to acquire the data or scrape the data from the internet? So how do we get our hands on the data to get the insights that we need? Then you need to look at the types of data, because there's a huge difference between classic transactions from an accounting ERP system, processing orders versus going into the space of unstructured data. This could be PDF documents, or this could be contracts that you have with existing customers. It could be other types of unstructured data. So that could be phone calls from your support when customers are calling in. It could be emails that you're receiving right, left, and center, but it could also be data that you're scraping from social media or other sources. What are the customers actually thinking about this product or this service that we just recently launched? And if you move into production, IoT, streaming analytics with images that you capture from, that could be a production line, or data on temperature control systems, etc. The types, the sizes of data will drive requirements to your technical infrastructure. The classification of data in terms of sensitivity and confidentiality will trigger requirements for the controls you need to have on your platform to make sure, you protect your intellectual property and you live up to legislation. Yes. And you might even have some ethical considerations depending on your industry, which for us in Europe, so Denmark, we need to adhere to the EU AI Act. Yes. GDPR control requirements. I think being a citizen of EU, that's a good thing. Yep. But as a company, you got to consider these things because they will trigger requirements to your technical platform that you are building. So these will trigger the functional requirements to the infrastructure, the architecture, whatever it is you are building to meet those use case requirements, right? No, indeed. And I think without planning and executing around data foundations and data strategic thinking,
I do see the problem of short-term experiments leading to very long-term consequences that may not be the best for the organization.
I completely agree. I mean, what I have witnessed, and look, it's I love a quote that I've heard at a conference. Look, data is the hard part, and it's not because we are dumb, and I totally buy that. So I think when you do a POC, you basically just go into source number 458.
Yes.
And ask the data engineer to just take like a snippet of a table or whatnot, or a schema or whatever, and they will throw that into the POC environment, and then you can do your MVP or your not even your product, but actually just a proof of concept and demonstrating, okay, this is what it looks like, this is how it works. But I think the problem with that approach is that you never really have the conversation of what can this data do to drive a strategic competitive advantage. And that also means that you've lost the execs already at this point in time, because if this is for the chief commercial officer, the operating officer, the chief scientific officer, or whatever, then they are not even part of the conversation because they don't know or understand what is expected from me. So they will not sit and own the data that either is there in the sources today, often filled with quality problems. They will not own the data classification, do's and don'ts with this type of data. They will not go and acquire data and strike good deals that you need in order to get data into your company that will make a difference for you as an organization. And then the entire implementation becomes a classic IT over the fence type problem, because this is often driven by IT organizations, but I have never seen anything scale where the business is not part of it.
And probably that's a great articulation of where the future should head, business and IT coming together for the AI initiatives where data, which is the hard part, is resolved.
Exactly.
How do you see AI being considered in terms of an investment category? Is it a capital expense or is it OpEx?
So I think a lot of large companies, they look at IT as operating expenses, and they look at it with a short-term lens, year on year, and IT is the needful thing. Make sure we have our computers, our mobile phones, that someone picks up the phone when there's an IT problem, fix the security parameters, make sure there's lights on our applications, and do it as cost efficiently as at all possible. And I honestly think that's something to be deeply concerned about, because you cannot get the fundament in place. What we talked about just now in terms of the data strategy, getting not the entire organization, but the people that are part of this, get them on board and build the infrastructure, the security, the capabilities, the culture. Like this is much more than IT. This is HR. This is legal. This is quality. And the most important player in this, in my opinion, is the business, because the business, they know the customers. The business, they know the vendor landscape. The business, they know the part of the value chain they are accountable for. And with that, also the data that is generated in those process steps that they own. They know this. And they also know where it doesn't work and where all the problem sits. This is what IT practitioners like myself, we are second guessing, and we often make mistakes. So if you don't sit together, IT and the business, around the table with a clear division of roles and responsibilities, so IT will enable, we'll get the infrastructure in place, we'll make sure there are platforms in place, security controls, whatever you need in order to execute your use case, compute power, CPUs, GPU storage, all of that the IT folks can take care of. But they cannot own the process in which you use to accelerate outcomes with AI. They don't own the customer engagement. They don't understand what the customer ultimately need. They don't understand how you can improve the experience from the customer. IT can never do that, in my opinion. No, you need to do it together. So coming back to the investment thesis, you need to make a material investment, and you need to make sure you have business and IT together around the table with clear division of roles and responsibilities, and they need together to be held accountable for the outcome. Not at any cost, because you will in some of the cases realize it was an excellent idea, it didn't work. There can be so many reasons for that, whether the technology is not mature enough, or the data you thought you had was not good enough, or this is not what the customers wanted. So you need to move to the next use case that you have identified of strategic importance, and then take the learnings with you into the next topic on the list that you want to focus on. So never make it a blame game. Collaborate around it, because at the end of the day, you are accountable for the community you act in as a company, the customers that you are serving, the shareholders that believe in you, and the society in which you generally navigate. Right?
Yeah. And I think it's for the first time, at least in my working career, where I meet CXOs who are saying keeping technology with IT is a proposition of the past. Mm-hmm. Technology needs to be blended with deep workflow context of a business, which comes from business teams, for the AI world to really drive returns.
Absolutely.
And if you were like advising a CXO today, kind of on the journey, they may be probably starting or have done some experiments. What are the few one-way door decisions you would suggest they consider for business architecture, information architecture, and tech architecture?
Yeah. So I think there are actually quite a few that one has to consider, but you need to get infrastructure in place. And this is where we talk about hyperscalers, cloud vendors. You likely need a platform technology. Some of the hyperscalers, like Microsoft, they have Fabric that they bet on. AWS, they have alternatives. But there are an abstraction layer, a platform technology that you need, in which you can combine the various types of sources I was speaking about just a minute ago. You probably only need one of those. You don't need multiple platforms. You probably only need one hyperscaler. You don't need multiple hyperscalers. And then these are one-way door decisions, I call them, because the cost that you incur, not just paying the bills to the cloud vendors and the company that serves the platform, you also build a capability in your organization. Not only in IT, but also outside IT. I'm not saying the business user will have an opinion about how you embedded cloud infrastructure into the organization, but they will be consuming the platform layer. And they will be building apps on the platform layer that are the ones that at the end of the day will drive significant business outcome. And once you build these capabilities, you make an investment that takes time. It will cost you money, and it will take time to massage this capability into the organization, which also includes cultural changes. So if you're shifting from one hyperscaler to the other, you will basically, it's like playing a game of Ludo where you're starting over again from scratch. You might have a few learnings, but you will realize that the cost curve will escalate like this 3 to 5x, because one hyperscaler and another hyperscaler, then IT will sit and do integration, because you will be moving data forth and back. Not only will it drive a variable cost as a premium, you will also have teams that you cannot just move it from one hyperscaler to the other. You need to expand your team. And then you will sit with redundancy problems. You will sit with, folks that are building logics on this platform and with almost the same type of data on that platform over here. They are building nearly the same logic, but it's not exactly the same. And when the report is coming to the executive layer, you'll have different numbers, different results, different data points, and the executive will ask, guys, I don't trust this. And then the exec will get in touch with their trusted business analyst, who will make sure this is built in Excel and PowerPoint, and then that will be the truth of the organization. And with this, you will be introducing unhealthy competition. This is a risk, because some like Windows better than Mac, some like Linux over Windows as operating systems. Some they have a preference for Databricks, others Fabric, yet others Snowflake and whatnot. It will be the same with LLMs that now is talk of the town. So you have Claude from Anthropic, right? And you have ChatGPT from OpenAI. Then came, was it DeepSeek?
Yes.
Mistral. And Mistral, exactly. and these guys, they are clever enough to strike deals with either with Microsoft or with AWS. Then they will also strike deals with the platform vendors, so Databricks, Snowflake, and so forth. So they already have powered the platforms with LLMs. And then, companies, they will have a fear of missing out. Because if you place your bets with one hyperscaler on this platform and you're launching a new talk of the town LLM over here, the execs, they will say, oh, but now we need to invest in this hyperscaler. We need to get that platform abstraction layer in place. And then you are set up for an exponential cost curve that is doing like that. And I was just sitting down and having a look at, when, like a timeline from 2023 or so onwards, maybe a little before that, like when were the different LLMs released and when are they published with the different hyperscalers and the platforms? And here's the news.
Yeah.
A couple of months down the road, what they had exclusive rights of over there, they will get over here just a few months later.
Sure.
So unless the capability isolated in its own right is not strategic significant, don't do it. Stick with one hyperscaler, have a clear exit strategy, one platform, have a clear exit strategy, loosely coupled architecture. So see, the capabilities that you are investing in as building blocks that you can replace. Look at it like your house. You want to renovate your kitchen. You renovate your kitchen. It'll cost you some money. It's expensive. It's not easy. It will be a project. It'll be annoying. There will be many problems with it, but you can replace it, right? Yes. And that's how you need to look at this, where you integrate via APIs, so the systems, they can talk together, and you have what we call a loosely coupled architecture, because that's the way you maintain flexibility, so you can shift around as you move on. And I think as an organization, an interesting capability, in my opinion, worth considering is actually, how do I adopt new releases? How do I massage it into my organization? So imagine you have a tech radar. This is something I learned along the journey from some really skilled people, where you're basically monitoring new exciting technology. And then at a point in time, it will arrive at a decision where you will start to invest in the technology because it makes sense in the organization.
Sure.
But massaging the technology into the organization, that is complicated, and that can accelerate the cost curve even further. So building a capability where you can introduce new technology, either by waiting for the large companies to serve it, and then do the OCM stuff.
Sure.
Or serve it via your data or your AI marketplace, which are alternatives. Having that capability and being able to do that, I think, is something that will be a differentiator for some companies in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, as I synthesize what you were saying, it is so true that these heterogeneous, misaligned tech decisions, when made in the wrong way, are leading to compounded mistrust in the organization.
Absolutely. And I think I'm not saying that the executive team needs to be, cloud experts or platform technology experts. I think it's perfectly fine to delegate this responsibility. They don't have to be data domain experts either, but they need to make sure they have a governance in place, so they oversee and anchor these one-way door decisions. Even though you could let the CIO or the CTO drive both the exit strategy and a conversation of shifting from one cloud vendor, one hyperscaler to the other, or if you want to shift from one platform vendor to the other, I think you need to be able to do that. And that's mighty fine to have the CTO own that. I also think it's mighty fine to have a business owner, could be the chief operating officer, commercial officer, who owns all the customer data. And as part of that, you also choose to change the application landscape if you need to capture data that you don't have, or you need to modernize it, or you want to buy and acquire data. And doing that can be as expensive as a large enterprise IT implementation project. So splitting that responsibility, I think, is important, and making those decisions stick with the organization so everyone can see this is safeguarded by the executive team. Then we will loyally work towards that. I think is super important. 100%.
And maybe now shifting gears, the other topic, at least I've heard from CXOs, is managing the whole cultural shift of adoption of AI. It is a known fact now that at least tasks or a disproportionate amount of tasks can be offloaded to agents when done right.
Yeah.
Basis all those points we discussed so far. But when those disproportionate tasks are offloaded to agents, what does it mean for the job categories as they exist today? And execs are thinking, how do they make the change inclusive and not exclusive? How do they make people feel part of the change as opposed to being felt left out due to the change?
And honestly, Sanjeev, I think it's a complicated question.
Yes.
And I think we have yet to see how this will play out, because if you look at AI agents and agentic workflows and workloads, the technology at scale in large companies, I think is still in the early phases.
Yes.
So these significant transformation programs that will take place from within, as a consequence of the benefits one can harvest from completely automating through AI agents, for instance, it's not something that companies haven't done before, because you can talk about RPA technology.
Yes.
You can talk about leaning your business processes. You can talk about going from one strategic bet, one commercial product suite, and decide to shut it down or pull out of a certain market. So, companies, they've been doing this for years and years, but I guess the cycle on which this potentially can happen will probably be significantly faster.
Yeah.
So I guess enterprises, they need to sit down and figure out on the strategic bets they have identified where you will automate and or transform processes significantly. What will the future departments look like?
Yeah.
What will a hybrid workforce look like, where you have a combination of humans that are basically owning and managing AI agents or AI agentic factories? What will be the organizational design? I think many organizations, they look at it with a traditional pyramid model, where you have the new hires in the bottom, and then 1-2 years into the job, you can make it into the next job level, etc., etc. I think these type of organizational designs, they are up for evaluation. I also think the types of people that works in these organizations might change, because when you work with cloud infrastructure, platform technologies, including AI agents, you work with a framework that I also have learned called Everything is Code.
Yes.
Everything is code. It's so powerful what you can spin up from your CLI. And as an organization, you actually will be required. You need to embrace engineering culture, and it's a completely different way of working and thinking compared to what I think many organizations are used to. So the engineers, they need privileges on their computers. Many enterprises, they don't allow for that. The security department will not allow that because it's a risk, maybe because they are on a corp network or whatnot. And if you do that on a corp network, I agree to the risk. But the point is that cloud infrastructure will allow you to isolate that workspace. So you're not running any risk. Cloud infrastructure will allow you to have the engineers have the freedom they need.
Yes.
To set up the tool chains they need, whether it's CLI, PowerShell, whatever they need in order to actually build their code and transport their code into their repos. This is where you design the control environments, the segregation of duties before you move anything into production. You can test it, and you can do all the security checks and vulnerability scans in the world that'll satisfy any legal department, any quality department, any auditor. Will be blown away with the level of control you can have and the ability to correct errors, not if, but when they are introduced, because mistakes, they do happen. But you can fix it before it becomes a problem if you set up your environment the right way. And so you need to embrace a group of people. I think a lot are kids, millennials,
yes,
who we have brought up to question, why are we doing this? Why do I not have administrative rights on my computer? Why can I not use this tool? Why can I not use that tool? what is my career path? What is my compensation? I'm working on this strategic project. Is there any incentives to do this? This group of people, they need to become part of the culture, and they want also, not all of them, but some of them, they would love to come out and work with the business, understand the customer journey, or understand this process or that process, and become part of the solution, because they are fueled by doing cool stuff, building cool solutions that is changing a company. This is also what they want to do, and they want to make a difference. And that means that a lot of the traditional HR mechanisms, you need to sit down and evaluate those again. So as I said, classic HR structures, compensation models, incentive programs, job level progression, all of that has worked well for successful companies in many, many years needs to be evaluated. Not for the entire company, but for this group that are working on these strategic problems that you want to solve within a couple of years. Then once that, if you get that right, and you can see as an organization you're onto something, you can scale it out to the other part of the organization. And then you drive the change, and let's say you embed AI agents and completely automate a process.
Yeah.
You will also realize, everyone is talking about this, that there are people that will be out of a job. Mm-hmm. And depending on the type of company, the industry you are in, and how you see the future, you need to deal with this upfront, so that people, they feel safe, and they feel included in the change. They're part of the change. Maybe they will build a competency that they can use either in another company that has not been on the journey yet, or a competency that can be used in other parts of the organization. Because as we said in the beginning of this conversation, you start with strategic significant use cases. That means that out of your global workforce, you might only be impacting in the beginning a few percentage, but it's of strategic nature. So you still have the remaining workforce.
Sure.
And you need to make sure that you drive the change at the relevant pace, but in a good way, so people are part of the journey and are included. And then they can say, look, I'm already part of that. That means that they also grow, they develop, and they learn a capability, a competency that they can benefit from in their next career steps. So I think you need to think about who we are as humans and how you include folks that are part of important decisions, part of a journey. Everyone grows and learn. Some won't, and that's okay. Then you'll go and be beautiful somewhere else. That's also mighty fine.
Yes.
But create the journey and communicate around it and make it something exciting for the company to be part of.
And that's a very compelling mental model of kind of, we are there to support other humans, and the journey could be in the organization or outside. It's a matter of detail. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I must give a lot of kudos to you. We don't hear a lot of execs saying code is everything. So I think you got that right. And that will be even more true in the future.
It will be.
Right? Whether it's AI generated code or agent generated code is immaterial, but code will be the atomic unit of reasoning and actions as we see it.
I agree.
And a part of some valuable feedback on the HumBot positioning that I take from this answer is really about how do we meet executive buyers from our customer base. So we do paint a vision of driving business outcomes at scale, at non-linear speed, at fractional costs, but we don't add the last human element, and we don't suggest an operating model where the HR organization is involved right at the onset.
Exactly.
To plan the change. So
exactly,
maybe that's something for all of us to work together on.
Oh yeah, and maybe you also pretty fast in the early get-go, you want to get legal on board, so they understand that what is the power of the technology, but also secondly, that this is in legal compliance. I mean, let them eat their own dog food, right? Because this is also a sector where the technology can drive an amazing transformation, and you still need reasoning and sound judgment, and you still need experience. 100%. But everything in your process that is not creating value in those steps, you can automate. So get legal on board instead of ending up in a situation where You are at the point of a go, no-go decision and legal says no, and you need to basically pull off the steering group meeting or the executive meeting where you were ready to evaluate and move on. Get them on board in the beginning and let them see the potential of the technology so they are also part of the journey. If you have a quality organization as part of your business model, get them on board because they also have SOPs. They also need to make sure the organization is trained in the SOPs. They need to update these standard operating procedures, and they need to record deviations if the organization is not following these procedures. They need to do root cause investigation and document what they have learned. That's oftentimes what a quality organization needs to do. And if you get them on board from the beginning, they also have an amazing opportunity in transforming their process landscape, creating value for the organization, because I think a quality mindset will ultimately allow you to move much faster. If you experiment and you try to run as fast as possible, if you don't have legal or quality on board, you will often realize that you're introducing technical debt into your solution, and then you need to sit and refactor it. And that's not effective.
100%. We all know what lost
I can see you have been there before.
Exactly. I was recollecting my own experiences. Maybe moving towards the last two questions and moving to an associated topic, Thomas. When agents execute part of our tasks, as we have autonomously, that is, there is an inherent risk in this approach.
Absolutely.
Right? We talked about all the kinds of risk. So how would you advise executive leaders to just think about framing the risk that they would create in this change and manage that risk?
Exactly. So I think in what you do, whether you are in life science or in other industries, you need, and this is also part of good corporate governance, that is to manage the risk of your company. And the company that I worked for, Novo Nordisk, had a really good model, which was looking at the risk from a two-tiered model. So the data classification and then the business risks. And being in life science, it's all about patients. It's all about patient safety. With that, it's about product quality. Some are on the stock exchange, so there are also compliance requirements of financial character. There might be other significant business risks to consider. And with that, you can do sort of a tiered model where you can look at, okay, this is actually public available data, and we haven't identified any significant business risks. Low risk, build, follow your operating model, scaffold your code, implement, and do your thing. That will unlikely move the needle of a strategic initiative. So at one point in time, you probably need to move up in this tier where either you're working with strictly confidential sensitive information, or you're working with data that might impact your product quality, and hence the customer experience doesn't have to be about patients. It can be many other different industries. Many organizations, we all need to adhere to legislation, and for some industries there are stricter requirements than others. And I think the risk assessment and understanding the change you're introducing in your organization is a corporate agenda item, even on board level. In a board level, many larger institutions, they have an audit committee, maybe because they are on a stock exchange. I think you need to look at that level and say, okay, now let's look at the change we are driving here. What are the risks? Also, what are the benefits? So in the board of directors, next to the audit committee, introduce another committee that is overseeing the changes that you're driving in the organization and what you do to mitigate the risks. And if you then trickle down into your data and into your technology layer, your process landscape, and also the HR work at hand, if everyone can see the board is actually monitoring this, it will drive a change. And then the technologists, they can build preventive controls and detective controls also in and around the agents in such a way that when and where it matters, simply because the technology is not there, We need to acknowledge that AI agents cannot solve every single problem at this point in time, and let the big tech companies predict when that is the case. But as long as we know that they cannot, then you need a control design around the process that you are automating that will either prevent material mistakes, significant mistakes from happening, or will detect them timely so that you can respond as an organization and fix the problem.
Indeed. And just having this conversation is of value.
Thank you.
At least in our customer base, we don't even see customers engaging in depth around the risk conversation. It's something that they're pushing down the road. So interesting how you framed it, and the role of a control design framework is so critical and so topical.
I think it's super important as part of the design of the process that you, for instance, are completely automating, i.e. using AI agents.
Yeah, indeed. So Thomas, I think we are almost there towards the end. And I think there's a lot of takeaways that you've already shared for enterprise leaders. So thank you for taking us through such detail.
Thank you.
And if I could just maybe ask a last question as a point of advice or a point of caution or a point of guidance for executive leaders. If we look at 2026 now, what is the single most important decision category that you would advise CXOs focus on?
Yeah, and this is it's a good question because I think you need to understand what the technology can do for your business, and I think that was relevant 10 years ago. It was relevant 100 years ago, and it's even more relevant today. And if you have that understanding, then you need to start acting. You need to make a plan for what to do now, next, and later, where you make sure the strategic clarity is in place for the organization, so everyone understands how we work with the technology and which initiatives we are doing in order to optimize our business models. And you need to have the clarity in the data that you are working with. So a data strategy that is responding to your business strategy. And then you can basically start to work your way through the layers. But you need a clear plan. You need to make sure you understand what you are doing as an organization, the decisions that you're making. You can still delegate a ton of responsibility like you normally do. But you do need to pick up the technology and understand what it's doing for your organization so you can govern it, manage it, and steer it in such a way that you as an organization stay relevant into the future.
And what an answer. I mean, if I were speaking to a CXO today, I would say delegating the clarity that you should have in terms of how you would be orchestrating the change is not something you can delegate. No. You need to own it. You get clear.
Exactly. Just like the head of production will own the manufacturing, like the head of sales will own the customer relationships, as an organization, you also need to own how this technology will transform your business.
Oh, I mean, that's excellent. And I wish we had more time and we could continue for another hour, Thomas. There was so much learnings. But again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the questions. Thank you for having me.
100%. And we look forward to having more of these in future. Thank you,
Likewise.
Thomas.
Thank you so much.